Sean Van Fleet, thanks for coming and talking to us about your new project. Blame the youth. Blame my youth,
You could blame the youth. You could blame my youth, all youth. It's all
you can
good.
blame them all. Yeah.
Yeah,
Their
that's what
youth,
we
my
do.
youth, blame it all. I've been listening to your tunes, and I know you've been doing a lot of stuff even before this current project. So I'm interested to hear your story. Why don't you take us back and let us know how you got into music?
Oh yeah, dude. Every day I tell this story, it's going to be different. It's always like, what do I remember getting into music? Um, Man, my relationship with music, I mean, everyone starts, early on, but I remember uh, it really started for me at my grandfather on my mom's side. Tommy Ryan started an Irish bagpipe band called the Shannon Rovers, and so I have memories as a kid. My uncle was playing. I was like 10 years old or so, and my uncle was playing snare drum, and I'm like, I want to be like him. It's Uncle Dan. So Uncle Dan gave me a snare drum, and I started playing on that. And then next thing you know, I'm in a kilt on top of a bar called Alcott's in Chicago as like a 13 or 14-year-old kid, just playing to a
Nice.
packed house of crazy drunk Chicago Irish people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, and there are some good pictures to prove the story back then. And so yeah, it started. I think that's when I really started getting into it. And I was always a drummer. So after that, I don't remember if it was a garage sale or what, or if we garbage picked a drum set. But I got a drum set so I could drive my brother crazy, and which I did. And I just got really into drums and started just playing to like lots of records. And um, from then on, man, I was into sports. I was a baseball player, so I was going back and forth between that. And my first band was actually the school band. So I was playing that. I played marching band and just bouncing around. I always had a guitar around, kind of messed around on it a lot, but never really took it seriously. And then when I was about 20, I moved to Sarasota, Florida, and that's kind of where it all started. I moved down there. It was like an all white sand beach. I was down there on like a school internship at the time. Didn't really know what I was doing. All I knew is that I got to live for free for 6 months. So it was an acting internship, and I just had this audition that I did, and I had no idea. I wasn't really trying to act. I just didn't know what I was going to do because I had an injury, and I wasn't an athlete anymore. And I was like, what am I going to do? So I moved down to Sarasota, and I had an acoustic down there, and that's when I started like learning chords and really diving into it. Everyone wanted to hear "Crash" by Dave Matthews, so that's like the first song I learned.
It's a great song.
Everybody wanted to hear that, and like Jack Johnson and all that stuff. So I started playing that kind of stuff, and then started singing my own melodies over their chords. And then I got back to Chicago. I was there for a year. There was a hurricane actually coming up.
Was that like late teens, early 20s kind of internship?
Yeah, I was 2021, and yeah, a hurricane was coming up the coast, and Chicago boy, hurricane. I packed up and I left. I don't think it did much damage, but I saw that was coming. So I got back to Chicago and I started a band right away called For the Birds, just with some friends. And this was like MySpace era. So I wrote I remember sitting at a kitchen table writing my first song. It was about John Lennon because I was getting into the Beatles. Can't remember how it went, but I wrote that song and a bunch of others and recorded it with this guy Steve and this guy Mike back in Des Plaines, Illinois, where I'm from. And then we started a band. Just a friend of ours had a bus. He bought this like old Septrin bus and one of the shorter buses. And he's like, you guys want to go on tour? So we booked a tour, wrote songs, and we left for that tour. And that's kind of where the touring life started. But funny story about that, we were leaving to hit the road, and we hadn't checked the bus or anything. And we were like all excited. We booked like 6 or 7 shows ourselves. First time like we're hitting the road, and we're backing out, and the bus, the transmission just blew backing out of the driveway. So our guy Max in the band, he's like, we're not letting that get in the way. So he slides under the bus, and 8 hours later, he had that all plugged up. And then we went on our first tour. We missed our first show, and then we got down to right outside of Dallas, and that was like one of the first shows I remember. And we just played this like house party in Dallas, and it was nuts. And it was like after that is when I'm like, I kind of love the road. I like being out there, and all the breakdowns and all the near-death experiences that we had, like that kind of got me hooked, I guess. So Yeah,
Yeah,
so
that's interesting. You booked a house party on the tour. Was that like a friend's house or something like that who
dude,
you
it
happen
was
to
like
know?
it was all MySpace. We just like some kids were throwing a party, and they're like that was supposed to be the second show. We missed Carbondale because of the bus, because of the transmission. But then when we got down there, we were a little late, but the kids were all kegs all over the place, and they had all set up. They probably had like one PA. It was kind of it was a mess, but it
Sounds
was
fun though.
awesome. I
Yeah.
remember playing, and I remember we were leaving on the bus, and there's like maybe like 50 to 100. In my mind, it's like 1,000 kids, but it was like 50 to 100 kids, and they're all like pounding on the bus, and I had I had a little taste of Beatlemania. It's like
Yeah.
50. I'm like, yo, this is tight. I like this.
What were you going did you attempt to go to college or anything after high school, or was it
And
just
I have enough credits to be a doctor, but I have like I got close to a lot of different degrees and never settled on anything.
so was
Lost
this
soul.
during college? Was this summer, or did you take a break from school or something like that?
Yeah, this was college era.
Uh-huh.
So like I had just like I said, I bounced around a lot, and at this time I was kind of done with college, and I was working at like UPS
Mm,
and Coca-Cola and just those jobs. Those were the first jobs I had, and I took 2 weeks off, and we did this tour. And
nice.
I mean, blown tires down the mountain, breaking down in the middle of like a road with no gas, no services for 100 miles either way. Like we had the real experience.
Yeah.
And I think like if you can fall in love with that, and you can make it out of that, and look back and be like, yo, I kind of love that. I think that life is for you.
I love that idea of booking a house party somewhere. If you know, because booking a tour for you know, a band just getting started is hard, you know. And I love the idea of is, hey, you can't find a venue, just book a house party somewhere. You
Yo,
know, reach out.
I just remembered it was BYOFL.org. It's like book your own fucking
Oh
life.org.
yeah, I think that still exists. That yeah, that
Is it?
website still. I think it still exists.
No.
I've definitely heard of it,
Crazy.
or I just talked about it recently with somebody. It might have been you know, one of these Warp Tour type bands that I
Yeah,
talked with
that
recently.
yeah, that was yeah. So that's what we did, and we just kind of DIY. I mean, we were just like a bunch of friends playing music, and yeah, and I got back, and right when I got back, this is for the birds. We were playing like around in Des Plaines, where I'm from, and a friend of mine, Tom, he was in a different band at the time. He's like, he just got out of that band. He's like, hey, do you want to start a band with me? And I'm like, yeah, we'll move to Chicago. So this is like 2005 or six. So we moved to Chicago then, Tom and I, and a friend of ours, Louie. We all got into a real sketchy apartment situation, rats and all. We don't have enough time for that story. But
Huh?
we were living in Bucktown, Wicker Park, and just kind of like a bunch of people in a 3-bedroom Chicago apartment. And that's when I started a band with Tom called Empires, and wrote our first record, Howl, in that apartment. And that's when things started to get a little more serious. So we started making good recordings because we had another guy named Max in the band, and he was recording us, and we put out 4 or 5 records with Empires. That was like an 8-year blur of being a ping pong ball between like New York and LA, just going back and forth,
Yeah.
touring like crazy. Like we spent a long time on the road. And during that time I was also a bartender, so I could survive. So it was a nice situation because we'd be touring, making records, and I get home and it was the same Italian family I worked for forever. And when I get off the road, and they were like, "Yep, you got the job," every single time for like 8 years. So
That's
that
awesome.
that floated me until Empires was over, and that was, well, I'm giving you the nutshell here. Empires was over, and then that was 2015, and that's when I came out to LA to just focus on writing for other people, which I've been doing for like the last 5 years. And
Yeah.
it's
Did you feel like you really got your writing chops up in Empires, and then you're like, I could do this for other people? Was that the idea?
Yeah, yeah, man. I learned how to write. I just wrote alone all those, like, the lyrics, melody, and everything that I brought to the band, and I just kind of did that for years. And the idea of co-writing was never like, it was never any. It wasn't on my radar. It's not on your radar in Chicago.
Hmm.
So my publisher at the time, his name's Tom DeSavia. I called him. I'm like, hey man, should I go to Nashville, or should I go to LA? Like,
Hmm.
I know those are the two towns. He's like, why don't you come out here for 2 weeks in LA, stay with me? So he like put me up. He booked like 7 or 8 sessions, and I loved it so much I started booking sessions on my own. Like I just fell in love with it. And that was Songs Music Publishing, because they were Empire's publisher. So I fell in love with it, man. It's it kind of became like you join a band and start a band every day.
Yeah.
So I love that, all the different styles I got to do. And to keep the nutshell story going, there's a guy that I toured with. He was in a band called Ghost Beach, or TBTV first, then Ghost Beach. His name's Josh. And then Josh started a project called Nudes. So while I'm bouncing around session to session, just writing a whole lot of different kinds of music, Josh started Nudes, and that's when it's very like, it's like laptop punk style stuff. And
I've heard of them.
Freedom.
I like them.
Yeah, dude, it's crazy stuff, man. It's like my favorite. He's my guy. So
it's like Nudes with a V, right? If I'm
yep.
Yeah. They got a great song, and we're gonna start talking about this. But I thought it was like some small band that I had just discovered. But then I heard one of their songs, I think, on a commercial a year or so ago, and I was like, oh, okay.
So the thing with Nudes is so we were writing all these crazy songs, and it's Josh's project, but I was his collaborator, and we started. It's just such an awesome relationship. But we kind of got a break with our first song, "Turning Heads," got into an Apple commercial.
That's the song I'm talking about.
Is that the song?
That's a great song.
Thank you, man. And then after that, there's a song called "DYT," which Remy from Nashville is singing on. So there's Josh. Just the Nudes project just started like just landing in all these awesome opportunities without writing for it. It was just like Josh doing his thing, producing songs the way he wants them, and these like cool companies wanted to put the songs in their ads. So that was a really cool moment. Like with Josh, we were in New York when that first Apple commercial aired, and it was just like we were just over the moon. It was, dude, yeah, it was pretty wild.
Apple commercial, man. That's like the golden goose of syncs.
Yeah, dude, we thought so too, and we still think so. And that relationship with Apple and Nudes has been like crazy. We've had a bunch of songs and a lot of the commercials, and it's just crazy. It's been awesome.
Yeah, that's a great song. I love that style of music just in general. It's like I don't know how you described it, but it's like dance punk,
laptop punk. That's Josh's phrase for it. Yeah, it's just crazy stuff, man. You walk into a session with Josh, and he's like, "Hey, man, put on these glasses and hold these crystals and go sit over there where the sun's coming in, and here's a wireless microphone and just go somewhere." So that's where I kind of learned the writing on the mic, which. Just to jump around a little bit, right before that, when I first started doing sessions through a guy named Gary Morella, I got lucky to just jump into Timbaland sessions.
Wow.
So it's crazy. I was like, what am I doing here? But Gary threw me in, and I saw some people like writing on the mic that way, and I'm like, man, I got to try that. And right around that time is when we started doing like the turning heads and all that ooh la la la, like crazy nude stuff where nothing's written. We just like freestyling, and Josh chops it up kind of like Fatboy Slim style, and he takes like the hook after 5 minutes of freestyle, and then he makes a song out of it, and we make a song out of it. It's crazy, man. It was a good little adventure, and I'm still on it. I still write songs with him. He's one of my main collaborators out here.
That sounds fun. So you said he gives you a wireless mic, so not a lot of like concern about like, oh, we got to get you in front of this perfect mic to capture everything, which fits that type of style of music, because you kind of maybe want that lo-fi radio sound, radio effect kind of on the voice. So I guess it doesn't matter at the end of the day, but that's what you do. You'd have a microphone and you just wireless mic and walking around the studio.
Running, jumping, flipping, like just awesome. Like crazy, just like whatever comes out of my mouth. And that's how I learned to kind of just go with it. And like even when I'm writing like traditional, you're writing verse, chorus, and which I do like most of the time. There's a lot of that, like try to capture, like turn your brain off, but still try to listen.
Yeah.
And like that whole I wouldn't say freestyle, because man, I'm not. I like to think I'm a freestyler, but I'm not. Like I'll do two. I'm good with like 3 lines. The fourth line, I fall right off.
Right.
I've seen people that can just go forever, but it's cool,
hit that record button, and then you can chop it up, like you said.
record everything.
Yeah.
Like that's and now we can do that. Now I get to a session, you just record on the phone and start talking about whatever and start singing melodies and going crazy. And I just believe that, like, I mean, because I never know. It's like what's in the room. Put the antenna up and just kind of hopefully something comes through you and you say something cool.
Yeah.
That's my process to writing.
I love that, especially for that type of music. So you're still writing with Nudes.
Yeah.
And what what did you kind of, because like you said, Empires, you're working as a bartender, and did you start feeling like, hey, I could do syncs for a living? Like,
Yeah, man. I got well, to back up a little bit, I got lucky when I decided to move out here. There's a song that I had like an idea that I had written on my like back home, like visiting my parents. Like my parents are in Des Plaines. I'm in Chicago, so I come home every so often. And I was on their bed and I wrote this song, and it was the idea was called "Walk Out on Me." I had it for a long time, and right about this time, I did the demo and it wasn't like quite working, so I sent it to a collaborator of mine. His name's Aaron Wright, and I don't know if I sent it or a publisher sent it, but they're like, "Hey, can you mess around with this?" So he messed around with it and just created this beautiful song out of like something that was there. He kind of finished it. So he went the rest of the way, finished it, and then long story short, that song ended up going into Empire, the TV show, and Courtney Love sang the song, and Raphael Sadiq produced it, which was crazy for me because like D'Angelo, he's a crazy producer. So
Yeah.
that happened, and that song, the Empire soundtrack had gone like #1 Billboard, and it was like, oh wait a minute, so I can write songs, other people can sing them, and they can go in TV shows or the radio or whatever it is. Like that whole world opened up
Yeah.
to me, and that's how I'm like, okay, I could make a living doing this.
That's
So I've
epic.
been on that playground for 5 years, and I just finished now I'm just writing with a lot of different people. I just finished a record, writing with Fitz from Fitz and the Tantrums,
Nice.
and yeah, he's crazy. He reminds me of Josh a lot. They're very crazy, like the same kind of energy, very like brilliant. Just know, like you get in the room and you're gonna have fun. And so I just finished that project, and I've been doing a lot of projects like that around town. And he's going solo for a minute. I mean, Fits and the Tantrums is still very much a thing, but
Right.
he just put out the first song, and there's a record coming out in January. And yeah, man, it's just jumping around doing a lot of stuff like that. I
Yeah,
mean,
that
it's
sounds like a
LA's.
blast.
Yeah, man, LA is like a big playground for that. Like across the street, someone's working on a script, someone's writing a song over there, developing tech. It's like collective consciousness of like super high creativity out here and everywhere.
Totally.
But like, I just really tap into it here.
Yeah, that's one of the things I love about Los Angeles. Some things, there. I think there's a lot of, you could say a lot of funny things about LA, but I
Oh
always
yeah,
just
man.
I alwaed just loved
My
I
friends
loved the
call it
art
Goop
that's come
City.
out of this town. You know what I mean? It's
Oh,
and
dude.
just all the romantic stories of rock stars and artists and actors
Yeah,
and
man.
everything, and you can feel it in the air when you're in the right places.
Oh, definitely. And I haven't stopped feeling it. Like you can, LA is it's a trick, man. You can walk around and look at the street, and it's like has filthy parts, and you can like focus on like that side of things, or you can look at the mountains. You can look at like all the art being made out here. You can just like look at there's ocean. It's like a beautiful place.
Totally.
So this Des Plaines boy, Chicago boy loves it because also I'm outside right now in November,
Yeah. Yeah.
and without I got a sweatshirt on, but I don't have like a down jacket on.
Yeah, it's been a little cooler the past couple of days. Yeah, I'm in Los Angeles right now. I'm in Highland Park. What part? Where are you hanging out right
Same,
now?
dude. I'm right by Amara Cafe, if you know where that is in
Oh
Gravaga.
yeah, I'm right next to you. You might be down the street.
Can you hear me? Woo! It's like you're right across. You never know,
I think
dude.
I did. Yeah, I'm right next to Fig. So that's cool.
Right on, man.
Small world. So was that would you say that was like the push you needed, feeling that inspiration from getting on that Empire's soundtrack? You're like, oh, I could really do this. Was that a big one of the big factors?
Yeah, man, that was like the first placement that I could remember. Empire is so funny. Empires and then Empire the TV
Yeah.
show. It's just a coincidence. Empires might have had some placements, but that was the first one I got outside of the band, and then I just saw that world, the sync world, like opened up to me at the same time as writing, like in rooms with artists. It all kind of like just big collision of all that stuff, just kind of like burst wide open for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you've been doing syncs for a while, working with these crazy epic artists. Sounds like you're having a lot of fun and having some success at it. So maybe this is a good time to jump into your new project, Blame My Youth, and what it's all about.
I'm getting back to what I really love doing, which is like writing songs that I can get up and scream and perform, and like stuff that is like about my life or about like that I relate to when I write with others. that it's funny. We have to bring it backwards to like tell this story accurately
Okay.
too. So like I had met with Big Loud, which is my Big Loud Rock is my label. Big Loud, I met Seth at Big Loud in 2010, and he had seen Empires. He saw us perform at South by Southwest, and I guess I was hanging out of a window, just kind of getting crazy. He's like, I got to check this out. So he came and checked it out and loved what he saw. And long story short, he flew me to Nashville. And that is actually the first time I did 1 week of co-writing. So that was the only, and then I just never thought about co-writing again. But in that week of co-writing, I did a song with Joey Moi, and he's the producer for. He's like the other guy in my band. Like he's my everything. And we wrote a song together, and it was just like we were both singing, jumping around. It was like a crazy vibe, crazy energy. And then I came back home. Long story short, they had offered a publishing deal, but the band didn't want to sign it because it was just a whole mess. Like the band wasn't comfortable signing that deal for some reason.
Right.
And then they went on to find a little country duo, Florida Georgia Line, right after that. So they did okay. And then right after that, Empires did their thing for a while, and Seth and I remained friends forever. And so I'd always share songs with Seth. Like he'd come to town, and I'd share songs with him, like in a hotel room, just tons of stuff that I'm working on. Whatnot. We'd just be drinking till like 3 a.m, just playing all this stuff that his artists are doing. And I started playing him songs. I'm like, I don't know, this isn't for anybody but me. I don't know what I'm gonna do with it. And he heard a couple of them. He's like, man, I know you want to be in a band again. I'm like, yeah, dude. He's like, why don't we figure out, So we started talking about that, and I started putting things together, like building songs that I feel good about singing, that like represent me and who I am in my life. And Blame My Youth just started like being born, really. So that's like my family in Nashville, those guys. So Joey and I, fast forward 10 years, you got Joey and I in a room recording this like Fantastic, which I wrote out here with my friends. But Joey records everything. He engineers and produces everything. So it's just crazy, man. You stay on the road long enough and it winds and winds, and then you're back to like, you're like waving, you're back to where you were like 10 years ago, having moved on with your career. But, with Big Loud, it's like, we're both at a point where like, yeah, let's do this. So it just makes a lot of sense. So I've been writing these songs now for like a year and a half. And then quarantine hit, and that's when it was like the perfect time. It was like, man, I got some quarantine angst to get out. So I'd go down to Nashville and just like scream on the mic. You've heard Fantastic. I don't know what else you've heard, but we have Dance with My Demons coming out tomorrow.
Nice. Okay.
Which like that song I wrote a year ago with my buddy Greg Holden, who's become like a really like awesome collaborator of mine. And we met at the bottom. Like he was at the bottom. He was going through a divorce. He was going through some crazy shit. And I had like, I had gone through some crazy shit. And then we just wrote about our lives. And that's the second song with Blame My Youth that was born, that we just like line for line, we're just writing about like, the song is pretty much about, having self-love and celebrating like all the things, all your vices and bad habits that like give you guilt. It's kind of like embracing them and being like, yo, we can party. It's all good. Like, at least for the night, let's push everything off to the future, all the guilt and everything. And that's what we wrote. And that's like Blame My Youth. A lot of that stuff is just about kind of owning yourself. So should be like Thank My Youth, but Blame My Youth is cooler.
Yeah, exactly. I get it. I gotta say, it's funny because Fantastic is such a fun song, and it's so high energy. And hearing a little bit about your process with Nudes, I could totally picture you utilizing those tactics when writing just like that song, because that's what it feels like. It feels like one of those songs that's just pure feeling,
Yeah, man. Almost every song we have is born very quickly, because I think I've just been wanting to speak again as an artist for a long time, and just I know exactly what this project is. And I never really did with Empires. We were experimenting and going indie routes, and just we were inspired by like, LCD Sound System or like Roxy Music or something like that. And we were just inspired by sounds. But with Empires, or with Blame My Youth, it's like I've got a lot of life to talk about, and like I've gone through like every human, I've gone through a lot of lows, and it's like tapping back into those lows and being like, yo, if you dig into the dip long enough, you can crash through that. So that's like almost all the concepts, the song concepts are kind of like just like finding your like self-love, even though there's a lot of sabotage involved with it. It's just kind of like just tricking your mind into feeling good about things again. Like Fantastic is like, I literally woke up at the edge of the bed, and that first line, like I was pretty hungover. Things were like, it was one of those low moments, edge of the bed, just like that I feel fucking fantastic came out, and I'm like, you know what? I went and took a shower. I'm like, man, I do feel good. I don't know why, but then I went and wrote with my buddies Ryan and Nolan, and that song just came out really quickly. And that was actually the first song. That and Demons around the same time that kind of gave birth to this vision of just it's like kind of a very PMA, very like, I like what bands like Bad Brains and Andrew WK and just all this like just fight the positive fight.
Yeah.
And that resonates with me because I do that. I've been doing that since I came out to LA. I've been really focusing on that and not allowing myself to sink too low. And then when I do, just kind of like just try to look for a different perspective. And these songs kind of help me shatter into that, break through.
Totally. It's funny you mentioned Andrew WK because I didn't think about that connection, but now that you mention it, I'm like, yeah, I could see that could be part of the inspiration for, just that happy but hard, rocking kind of music.
Yeah, man, it's just a fight. Literally, it's just like celebrate every victory you can, the small stuff, even the stuff you got through, like the bad shit, like celebrate that stuff. Find a way to like, inspire yourself and inspire others by doing that. So I've done that in my life. I keep doing that. I don't know what tomorrow is going to bring, but in these songs, I just want to like, it's all of it so far is pretty uplift, which I think, we all need. So.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about the first song that you released on streaming platforms anyways, that landed on the Bill and Ted soundtrack.
Right Where You Belong.
Yeah.
So that was crazy. So what happened, my publisher, Casey Truman, she had sent just a bunch of songs to her guy, Jonathan Leahy, who was doing the soundtrack. He's a supervisor. And she sent him the Blame My Youth stuff. He's like, whoa, this guy's, wait, hold on. What is this? Is it released? And she said, no. He's like, this is the voice we need at the end of the movie.
Wow.
So it's funny. None of those songs, like, you're not going to put fucking Fantastic in that kind of a movie or any of the other songs. But it gave me a chance to write. And I took Greg Holden, who I wrote Dance with My Demons with. And we got together and just started. They told us a little bit about like what's going on with Bill and Ted and like the movie, the ending scene, and we wrote that song. And we sent it in, and it was like, wait, no brainer. This is what we're going to use for like the end. We heard end credits, ended up being the title, but it wasn't initially going to be Blame My Youth. We were just like, I was like, yo, we wrote this song because I've been writing stuff for film and TV, and then we're like, you know what, man, the message is very Blame My Youth, even if it's not exactly like sonically like the rest of the stuff. The message is very much, you're gonna be all right. So
right, that it does have a different sonic personality a little bit
for sure. But it was great, man. That was a great moment because we were at deadlines and everything, and we did the song and then sent it to Joey in Nashville, and he got his crew together in a day, and they just knocked that out. Like we had the guy who plays drums on all this, Jerry Rowe, and this guy Dave, like the guys who play on these songs, like they played, and they just hit it out of the park. And when you watch the movie, it just feels good. Like it feels like it's in the right spot. It's right where you belong, where it belongs.
Yeah. I'm a Bill and Ted fan. I haven't checked out the new one yet, but I'm looking forward to. So I'll be fun to see your song at the end there.
Yo, if you need a smile, man, it's a great movie. Like I'm a big Bill and Ted fan too, and it was like, is the third one going to live up to the first and second? It totally does.
That's
Cuddy's
awesome.
in it. Like they did a great job with it. The soundtrack's really cool, if I might say so myself. But it's an awesome movie, man. I saw it 3 times right when it came out, of course, because I love those movies anyways. I watched the old ones, and we had a lot of fun with the rollout for Blame My Youth that way. And then we started putting out the music that I wrote for this project, which was fantastic. Dance with My Demons and a bunch of other stuff coming top of the year.
Nice. Well, what a great way to roll out the new project. And so looking forward to hearing the new track. I guess if it's coming out tomorrow, then technically it'll drop at 9 p.m. tonight on the West Coast, right? Because you know that little trick. I'm always checking my release radar around 9 p.m. if I'm up on Thursday night.
Yeah, man. We just did a video for it, and the video comes out, and we were very inspired, like Lloyd, my manager, and I, and it was actually Joey's idea, I think, initially. Train Spotting. We loved that movie, and we thought it was so like Blame My Youth. Like, there's so much aesthetic. So fantastic video. We use that as a reference. And this guy Nathan Smith directed that one, and he also directed Dance with My Demons, which comes out tomorrow. And he did such a great job. And we had a blast with these videos. Everything just feels super right with this project because it's all fun. Like, that's literally what we're doing. We're just having fun doing what we want. And it's with like I said, it's with Seth and Craig and like the big loud guys and Joey, like people I've known for 10 years. So it's so cool to like have this, like I'm doing this with friends, and it sounds cheesy, but it's so true. It's like no brainer. So we're literally having fun, man. There's a lot of, like I said, recording. There's a lot of jumping around. There's a lot of like, we'll take every risk in the world because we love this. So we're having a blast right now with it.
It sounds like it. Well, Sean, thanks for sharing your story with us. It's an epic story. Sounds like it's not done. Sounds like there's plenty more to do and plenty more to come.
Yeah, if we were to talk tomorrow, I'd probably tell a different story. It's like, how did I start music? How did I start music?
Yeah.
Well, that's the gist.
Would love to talk to you again. So, maybe once some more stuff comes out, and it sounds like you do a lot of different projects. So come talk to us maybe sometime next year. But
love to.
Last question, like to ask all our artists, last question. If you had one piece of advice to give to aspiring artists, what would it be?
Oh, man, just it's going to be real. It's going to sound cheesy, but I always just fall in love with what you do in the process. Cause like, if you focus on successes and you focus on like what can happen with your music or with your art, that'll drive you crazy. So like I always say, like there's two people, there's two people that do anything artistic with their lives, and you have to be either crazy or stupid or both to do this, but you just better love it. So like that's my advice, is just fall in love with the process. Like if you're a writer, fall in love with the set, like with showing up every day and enjoying yourself and like experimenting, and just kind of let whatever the world's going to do, the universe is going to do with your music, kind of let that happen, but just love making it. And whatever you got to do to keep falling in love with it, keep doing it. I think that's my advice for the day.
It's good. I love it. Yeah, fall in love with the process, not the outcome, because then you'll be happy no matter what. Bring it backwards.